Just 1 week ago in Montreal, Lewis Hamilton was celebrating his first ever Formula One pole position. 24 hours later, he was celebrating again.
Lewis Hamilton wins! Surely the first of many for Lewis Hamilton.
The following weekend, in the rapidly developing career of Britain's new star, it's pole position number 2 on his first visit to Indianapolis. Will it be followed by victory in the United States Grand Prix? The Indianapolis Motor Speedway, where 3 weeks ago the American crowds were celebrating victory in the Indy 500. Scotland's Dario Franchitti. Well, this afternoon they're back in some force to see the young British driver who's taking the sport of Formula One into a whole new era. Lewis Hamilton is on pole position for the United States Grand Prix, and this is how we build up to round 7 of the Formula One World Championship.
Das ist der junge Sebastian Vettel, über den ich Ihnen später noch mehr erzählen werde. Bernie Ecclestone hat mit den Teams, wie gesagt, gesprochen über die Kundenautos im nächsten Jahr. Und das ist von allen Teams, ist alles noch inoffiziell angenommen worden. Nur Frank Williams sträubt sich noch ein kleines bisschen dagegen. Und das nächste wichtige Datum für den Grand Prix von Amerika ist der 12. Juli. Bis dahin soll die Entscheidung gefallen sein. Hier haben wir noch einmal Anthony Hamilton und hier Lewis Hamilton, die Sensation auch in diesem Grand Prix von Amerika. Mit großer Begeisterung aufgenommen, empfangen worden. Die Leute kennen ihn hier schon sehr gut, er wird bestürmt um Autogramme und er ist für alle zu sprechen, er ist immer da für alle und er steht auch allen immer wieder zur Verfügung. Hamilton ist also das neue Gesicht der Formel 1, führt in der Weltmeisterschaft vor Alonso, der Druck auf den Spanier wird stärker. Die beiden sind keine großen Freunde, können sie auch gar nicht sein, in der Formel 1 gar nicht möglich. Da gibt es Respekt, aber das ist eigentlich schon alles. Oder wie es Alonso gesagt hat, wir kämpfen momentan zu 4 um den Weltmeistertitel. Irgendwann sind wir nur noch 3 und irgendwann nur noch 2. Und ich vermute Alonso und Hamilton. Bernie hat von der Zukunft der Formel 1 kurz gesprochen. Ich darf Ihnen verraten, dass es hier gestern in der Nacht, und zwar mitten in der Nacht, schon eine Flutlichtprobe gegeben hat. Zum ersten Mal hat die Formel 1 Flutlicht trainiert, geprobt. Es gab insgesamt 4 große LKWs, die mit je 50 Riesenscheinwerfern gekommen sind auf die Strecke. Es sah schon aus wie in einem Hollywood-Film, aber es wurde geprobt eben schon für den ersten Nacht-Grand Prix Singapur, Melbourne oder wo auch immer. Wir sind noch einmal bei McLaren und wir sind noch einmal bei Fernando Alonso. Ich glaube, dass Alonso, der gestern im Qualifying die Pole Position an Hamilton verloren hat, ein bisschen schwerer ist vom Auto her. Ich glaube, dass er Sprit für 2 Runden mehr hat als Hamilton. Sie wissen, das ist immer das große Geheimnis. 2 Runden sind 5 Kilo Sprit und 5 Kilo Sprit mehr oder weniger sind eine halbe Sekunde. Schauen wir uns dann die Einstellung der Autos ganz genau an. Hier haben wir Streckeninspektion. Charlie Whiting rechts mit Herbie Blash links im Bild. Das ist der Platz von Fernando Alonso oder unmittelbar vor Alonso. Da ist David Ryan, einer der Teammanager von McLaren. Und hier wieder Lewis Hamilton. In die erste Kurve gibt es einen relativ langen Sprint. Hamilton, der Pole Position Mann, und Alonso werden dort ankommen mit ungefähr 300 km/h. Bereits nach dem Start, nachher im Rennen sind es schon 330, 335 km/h. Massa und Räikkönen in der zweiten Reihe. Das Team, das hier unbesiegt ist seit 2001. Amerika, Ferraris größter Markt. 25% aller Autos werden hierher verkauft. Ferrari hat sich einigermaßen verändert seit Barcelona, das wissen wir. Die Sidepods sind nach hinten gerückt worden. Besser oder schneller ist das Auto nicht geworden. Aber wenn Sie genau schauen, die Flügeleinstellung von Ferrari und von McLaren, die Ferrari sind um ungefähr 6 km/h schneller auf der Geraden. Das heißt, sie haben einen flacheren Heckflügel, mehr Topspeed. Können Sie es genau anschauen. McLaren etwas steiler gestellt. Das heißt, Wenn die McLaren vorne bleiben bis zur ersten Kurve, haben sie mit mehr Flügeln natürlich einen Vorteil im Infield, in diesem langsamen Teil mit mehr Anpressdruck, wo dann die Ferrari mit ihren flacheren Heckflügeln vielleicht ein bisschen ins Schleudern, ins Rutschen kommen, und das könnte natürlich auch enormen Reifenverschleiß heraufbeschwören. Reifenstrategie sage ich Ihnen auch gleich. Jetzt beobachten wir mal Kimi Räikkönen. Ferrari Saisonstart wie im Traum, Pole Position und Sieg in Melbourne. Aber dann 2 dritte Plätze, ein Defekt, ein 8. Platz, ein 5. Platz. Also nicht das, was sich Kimi Räikkönen erwartet hat. Alex Wurz fuhr schon 2000 hier den Grand Prix von Amerika in Indianapolis und damals wurde er 10. Aber er und Fisi Keller waren damals auf den letzten Plätzen, denn es sind in einer Massenkollision sehr viele Autos ausgeschieden. Wurz immer sehr sicherheitsbewusst. Der Head and Neck Support, also Hals- und Nackenschutz. Hier Jarno Trulli steht am 8. Platz neben Vettel in der 4. Startreihe. Trulli hatte Pole Position hier 2005 in dem Rennen, das er nicht gefahren ist, nach dem Rückzug aller Michelin-Autos nach dem schweren Unfall von Ralf Schumacher.
Indianapolis afternoon, which combined with the intense anticipation that comes in the last few minutes ahead of any Formula One Grand Prix, it's a pretty heady mix, and this United States Grand Prix is just a few minutes away. We'll be talking to as many people down on the grid as we can. Heikki Kovalainen, after a disappointing and frustrating Canadian Grand Prix, has qualified on row 3 with his Renault, and he's talking with Louise.
Yeah, it's been a good weekend for the rookies. It's Heikki's best qualifying position so far. It's gone well for you here, hasn't it?
Compared to where we were a week ago, it's much, much better.
What are the issues, what are the concerns that you have for the race ahead?
Obviously, we have to look for the tires, make sure that if we have a chance at any point to save them, trying to be a little bit careful with them, that would help. And then the strategy, we'll see how it works out. But I think we are on a good one, so fingers crossed.
Best of luck.
Thanks.
Well, down on the grid, the priority for the drivers is to keep cool in this heat. The priority for others, as ever, is to look cool. And Martin Brundle can manage both. And we will be down with him very shortly on that grid. But just look at those crowds that surround this Indianapolis Motor Speedway. They were talking about this whole of the pit straight being a sellout, Mark, and that certainly seems to be the evidence of what we're seeing here.
Yeah, I think it's a great improvement over what we've had last year, and I have to say I think a lot of that again is down to Lewis Hamilton, Steve. I think he's bringing a whole new audience into Formula One, and I'm really looking forward actually to the British Grand Prix to see the crowds there.
And the temperatures up into the 90s, and it seems a distant couple of years ago that they were throwing things onto the track and voicing their objections to the tyre dispute that we had ahead of the US Grand Prix just a couple of years ago. And it's all smiles from Bernie Ecclestone, who is, it seems, a long way down to securing a long-term deal to keep the United States Grand Prix here at Indianapolis. Let's go down onto that grid and join Martin.
Welcome to the grid. Happy Father's Day if you're a father. Here I am then, the yard of bricks, reminding us that this whole track used to be made of bricks. That's why they call it the brick yard. The double-decker grandstand, full of people certainly in the start area anyway, looking forward to a great race. The safety car, very much the star of the Canadian Grand Prix, led loads of laps. And if a car stalls on the grid here, because it's this super high-speed section from the Indy 500 track going the other way, you can see the walls for yourself. It's very difficult to get a car off the grid in a lap that's just over 70 seconds. So if a car stalls on the grid today, they may well use that absolutely immediately. Beautiful grid girls with their flags on the, I'm not sure I can reach as high. Hello, how are you?
I'm wonderful, how are you?
Yeah, good stuff. So have you met any of the drivers? Have you met Lewis or anybody?
No, I have not.
Yeah, okay, good. So what have you got to do today? What's your role today on the grid?
We are standing and we are looking gorgeous and fabulous, and we are giving these handsome drivers beautiful women to look at along with them.
I would say that's job completely done already then. Well done, see you later. Let's have a look at what's going on in Lewis Hamilton's neighbourhood. He's not back on the grid yet. Here's a man called Pharrell Williams. We're live on British television. Pharrell, quick chat. Now you're a rap singer, hip hop, you're a producer for Justin Timberlake and Nelly, and You do clothes, you do shoes, you do everything. Yeah, you're a busy guy.
Thanks.
Okay. Plenty of words, and not today necessarily, obviously. But you're with Lewis Hamilton on the front of the grid here. Do you know Lewis?
Yeah.
Yeah? Good stuff. Anything you can do with him, for him in the future?
That's under wraps, but really and mainly today we're here to support, his brand and what it is that he represents. I mean, himself, he's a good kid, and I think he represents a lot of humility for all of his achievements. I mean, it's his 7th race. I mean, he's doing great. He's really doing great, and for him, he just sees a different kind of world. He thinks that any and everything is achievable. And we stand behind that and we support that. I mean, it sounds like gibberish, but it's really what's got us here. We're here because this kid really believes that he can do anything that he wants to do. He puts his mind to it. Wealth is not of the heart and the mind. It's not of the pocket. It's of the heart and the mind.
So he sounds like he's really motivated you. Now, I understand you drive a Ferrari Enzo on the road, yeah? Are you a bit of a racing driver or frustrated racing driver?
No one drives slower than me. I also have a McLaren, too.
You got a McLaren too, so that's like about 2 million quid's worth of kit, yeah? But I guess it looks good.
Yeah, it is what it is.
Okay, well, Lewis is back on the grid now and getting in the car, 2nd pole position for him. We'll just give him a bit of a wave. Anthony, what's Lewis? You just escorted him to the toilets. What's he got to say?
Nothing really. Just pretty calm, fairly prepared for the race. Just looking forward to it.
Okay, we're going to wander down the grid, see who else we can find. Jets flying overhead. Let's see a big story today. These 2 McLarens with Alonso 2nd on the grid too. They're about 10 kilometers per hour, something like 6 miles an hour slower down this main pit straight, although they're overall faster on the lap than the Ferraris. So the Ferraris are going to be hoping they get a smell of a slipstream early on, because otherwise I don't think they're going to have a prayer of staying with these McLarens. I don't know if Alonso's on the grid. The drivers, more and more, are staying away until the last moment. Let's just have a quick word with Ron Dennis. Ron, quick word. Congratulations again. You've got the dominant car. Your drivers are both fighting for the World Championship. Lewis 8 points ahead of Fernando. How are you going to stop them tripping over each other like your 2 drivers did last year? What can you do about that?
Me personally, nothing. These are 2 competitive but fair racing drivers. They know that tangling in the first 2 corners isn't good for either of their championship hopes, so I hope common sense and intelligence will prevail.
You'll still be a big sigh of relief in turn 3, I'm sure, if they're both running.
Actually, I'm going to hold my breath for a lap.
Okay, see you later. Right, there's one young man I want to talk to who's 7th on the grid, Sebastian Vettel. I hope I can find him. I hope I'm not too late to have a quick word, because I'm just really keen to know what's going through his head. No, finished. Not one quick word. He did say if he was putting his helmet on. All right, we'll just take a quick look at the guy. But I did talk to him earlier on and say, is he up for talking on the grid? He's just 19 years old. What has he got to what experience has he got to draw on at that age to know you can throw me off the grid, son? Well, you'll have to try harder than that. Right, let's see who else is in the field. I've got to head this way. I thought I saw Bernie and Tony George. We want to know. Tony George, how are you doing? Good to see you again. So, are we going to come back to Indy for another Grand Prix?
I hope so.
Yeah, so do we. What is it hinging on? Is it hinging on Bernie being benevolent?
No. We just have to talk about all the things we need to do better. And, I think everyone wants to be back here for a long term. So, just a few things we've got to work out that we don't have time this weekend to do.
Well, the track looks good. The crowd seem happy, so I hope we put on a good show for you here in America.
Thank you. I'm sure you will.
Steve.
Well done, Martin, and the race will be underway as soon as Martin Brundle leaves that grid. Some final thoughts from you, Mark Blundell, especially on the drag race that we're set for down to that first corner. Who's going to come out on top?
Well, I think Lewis is still going to be focused on getting into the turn 1. But I have to say the big thing for me, I think, is going to be the heat and the tyre temperatures and the degradation on the tyres. And that's going to be the thing that's going to worry most of the drivers today, Steve. That's the problem. But saying that, Bridgestone done a fabulous job with the tyres. We're all on a control tyre, and I don't think there'll be any effects of what we've seen over the last couple of years or so.
How relevant is it to a driver? How relevant is it to Fernando Alonso to come to a place like Indianapolis and know that you've never really performed well here?
Well, it's always a little bit of a bugbear for some drivers that, there's some circuits that stick in their mind and they don't actually get a result that time and time again. If you can try and get over that, yeah, obviously it's a wonderful thing, but I wouldn't be surprised that Alonso's already sort of got in his mind that it's going to be a tough race and a tough day in the office, and Lewis has just got an outstanding amount of pace, and if he does come second again, Alonso to Lewis, I really see this championship lightening up.
Well, Lewis Hamilton, of course, comes here with no Indianapolis experience, but he's certainly living the American dream, and it's the United States Grand Prix that has many of the right ingredients to persuade the American audience toward Formula One, especially the arrival of young talent and a really exciting new star. They'll be watching with interest to see how Lewis reacts to this latest examination of his ability and composure, and so will we. The countdown to the start is coming next.
There's a look at the course on the video board. 13 turns on the straight race.
Man, it's so hot, isn't it? The track must be 50 degrees.
Hey, firm. It is very hot.
Okay, Lewis, if you could warm your brakes, please warm your brakes. Jakob Zevik concerned about the temperature. And more brake temperature, please, Lewis. More brake temperature.
That long stretch.
everything is fine. Okay, Daniel, which noise? Where do you find the noise? Okay, Daniel, keep pushing, you're racing full, keep pushing, keep trying. We're checking the data, there's nothing. am losing the tires. I'm losing the tires now. Rear. Okay, copy that, Jarno. You're losing. Okay. Jarno, all cars struggling with rear tires now.
Come on, Fizzy, get 2 more and then you'll be clear. 2 more and you'll be clear.
Jarno, you are always at least 2 or 3 tenths faster than the cars behind you. You're pulling away from the cars behind you, but you need to keep pushing because some cars...
be a little bit more front wing, mate, where you control it with the toy. I've got a vibration in the rear through the magnet as well. Rosberg has pitted. He is on one stop. It's very close between you and him.
Keep going, Nick, we know it. Keep going. Box, Nick, try to bring it back slowly, no shift, slowly, no shift.
up to a fire extinguisher where you can. Then jump out. It's a good bit of...
I love you too, Lewis. Great job, mate. Great job. Bring it back. Remember, on throttle upshift.
From Benny already up here on the Rockman, we have Fernando Alonso. Obviously they're not doing for him. And he's already up here. Lewis is on his way up as well now. And we wait for Willie Belata as well, because of his way, of course, the representative of the Mercedes today.
Hot out there.
It's pretty fresh, I have to say. Goes to watch. Just waiting, as I say, for the representative from Vodafone McLaren Mercedes to come up on the roster.
You ready?
Very happy. 2 times out of 8 days, 2 wins. As you count ninth and Alexander Burke for top 10. Stand by, and we will be going to the press conference room to hear from your new champion. And a legend in the making. Here at Speedway, Indiana, the racing capital of the world. Of course, Hamilton became the youngest British driver for the Grand Prix. He won in Canada last weekend. First black driver to win a Formula 1 race last week. First black driver to win at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Historic day, 22 years of age. We watched him compete. Speaking of youngsters, how about Sebastian Vettel, 19-year-old, grabbing some points today.
Sincere congratulations to the three podium finishers of the United States Grand Prix. Third for Scuderia Ferrari Marlboro, Felipe Massa. Second for Vodafone McLaren Mercedes, Fernando Alonso. And heading the third 1-2 finish for Vodafone McLaren Mercedes in 2007, Lewis Hamilton. And Lewis winning your second successive Grand Prix.
What a dream. To come into two circuits that I didn't know, my first time. You know, to really come out with such pace, to see the team moving forward always and being competitive, and just to see how much work the team back home, back in Brixworth, in Woking, in Stuttgart, how hard they all work to produce the car and to develop it. And they've done a fantastic job, and really I'm just so thankful to them, because it wouldn't be possible without them. And the guys here, they're a great bunch of guys, and did a fantastic job on strategy, setting up the car. So really, it's a perfect team, and you know, I'm really happy I could put the icing on the cake.
And a very, very close race with your teammate Fernando throughout the race distance. You took the lead at the start, but by lap 38, Fernando was right there, and there was pressure all the way.
It was, especially the middle stint. I think the first stint, the first couple of laps was extremely close. And then obviously I managed to pull a slight gap and maintain that. And then going to the middle stint, the outlap, the first two laps were very good, and then my tyres just started to grain. So maybe I pushed too hard on them immediately. And so Fernando was right up my tail, and it was extremely difficult. Obviously he's in my slipstream the whole time, so he would always catch me down the straights. And so whatever I gain midfield, I lose on the straight. And so it was very, very tough, but he fought very well. Very professional, and you know, at the end I managed to pull a gap, and we both I was able to maintain that gap and control the rest of the race.
As we say, your second successive win, but a win in the United States here at Indianapolis. Talk us through the closing laps of the race. Did it seem like a long, hot day for you?
It did. Obviously, it was great to see that there's a big crowd here, and they're all very, very supportive. A lot of British flags out there, which is fantastic for me. I get a lot of energy from that. But the last few laps were, it just seemed to be very long. You know, they came across the radio and said 15 laps, and I was like, okay. And then 15 laps just seemed a lifetime, especially when you're out in the lead, trying to maintain it, not to push too hard, not to damage the car. And so, but I was able to do it, and as I said, just very, very emotional.
Congratulations to you.
Thank you,
Lewis. Fernando ran one lap longer into the first stint. Looked as if you might have a fuel advantage. Very, very close on lap 38 there, as Lewis just said.
Yeah, very close. I think at the start also was very close, but I did manage to overtake Lewis, and from then on I think you know, when you follow someone you lose a little bit of downforce, and it's difficult to get the tires in conditions to push all through the stint, because you damage the tires maybe a little bit more when you run behind someone. So I think, yeah, I tried in the middle stint, and I was side by side once here on the main straight. But again, it was not enough to overtake him, and you know, the last stint was just maybe a conservative one. It was very difficult to overtake, very difficult to follow anyone. So you know, we just, I think, start thinking in the French Grand Prix.
We saw you run a little bit wide on lap 46 as well. Was that a function of perhaps the tyres getting a little bit dirty?
Yeah, it's so difficult to run behind anyone here. I think on the main straight helps you. You can gain 1 or 2 tenths in the main straight because you take the slipstream, but you know, in the rest of the corners you lose so much downforce, you lose so much time. So yeah, I think this race, I think the start was the key point of the race, because after that I think wherever it was second, he will finish second in the race.
And if I can just ask you, how would you describe your start?
Well, I think it was good, but you know, I think we both break in the more or less in the same point, and you know, the start is always risky. I remember Canada going off in the grass and losing 1 position, so obviously I was with my teammates, so you know, you try to overtake, but what you don't want is to finish the race in the first corner. So you know, 8 points are better than nothing. So you know, we increased the gap to Ferrari, which is one of the main things in this first part of the championship.
Congratulations, Fernando. Thank you. And turning to our Ferrari driver, Felipe Massa, third again. You probably don't want to hear that, but it looked like a lot of pressure from Kimi at the end there. You're on slightly different tyre compounds at the end of the race.
Yeah, it was a big pressure. You know, Kimi was on different tyres than me, and for sure he had better grip, better track grip as well in the end of the race. So he was able to close very much the gap. But yeah, for sure, you know, I did a good start. He didn't, and I could manage to make a good gap there. And then he got close, but he was after the last pit stop. So in the end, it was good. Managed to keep the car on the track, not making mistakes, and just keep him behind.
And how do you feel about the race against McLaren Mercedes today? Talk us through the first few laps. Do you feel you're any closer to McLaren at this point than you were perhaps in Canada or Monaco?
Well, in the first stint I was maybe a bit closer, but they was pulling away the gap slowly, lap by lap, you know, making 3 tenths quicker and everything. So, and then it was difficult for me to follow. So there wasn't just create the gap, especially Lewis was going away quite quickly. And my car, I couldn't push so much because I started sliding around. So, and then I just saw them going away. So it was for sure quite difficult for us to beat them today. But it's good to finish third and fourth.
Well done. And Lewis, returning to you for final thoughts. 2 of your countrymen, Damon Hill and Nigel Mansell, followed their maiden win with another Grand Prix win. You're in good company. They both went on to win the World Championship, of course. You say you're very emotional. Just talk us through again. You've had a little bit more time to think about it. Just a couple of minutes. This second Grand Prix win of yours.
Yeah, as I said, fantastic, and really just extremely pleased and proud for the team. I would have never have thought in a million years that I'd be here today, sitting against these drivers here, and finishing, winning both races in North America. So a great leap in my career, in my life, and extremely proud and thankful for my family and to God and to team. So
thank you very much, Lewis. Now if you'd have some words from Fernando.
For the second straight weekend, Britain's Lewis Hamilton is a winner. He follows up that success in Montreal with an outstanding victory in this United States Grand Prix. He resisted all the challenges that his teammate Fernando Alonso could throw at him. Another superlative performance from a young man who now leads the Formula One Drivers' Championship by 10 points from his world champion teammate Fernando Alonso. Another incredible day for Lewis Hamilton. Let's get the swift reaction of Mark Blundell. Will there be any complaints do you anticipate from Fernando Alonso? There were hugs up there on the podium.
I don't mean there's any reason to have any complaints whatsoever. He's been beaten fair and square. It's been a fantastic situation for Lewis.
I can't believe I've won 2 races. It's just I never ever expected that. I was extremely proud, obviously, to get my first one last week, but to come again to Indy where I've never been before and get a pole and the win.
It's true that I've been very quick all weekend, also in the race, maybe a little bit more than Luis today, but you know, I missed the victory, so it tastes so not so good.
When you have a two-time world champion breathing down your neck, it's really the hardest situation you will ever be in, and to remain consistent without making mistakes and everything, that's the hardest challenge I think I've ever had.
We saw you drive very close to the pit wall in the middle stint. Why did you do that?
Because I was always behind Luis, and my brakes were so hot, the engine was hot, everything was hot, running so close that I was on the inside. I tried to be off the slipstream, tried to cool the car a little bit in some laps, but I think that one was very clear on TV because everybody's asking me that, but I did a couple of times.
It was a difficult race, you know, looking at McLaren this first and second, but I think we need to put everything on the table and trying to understand what they did better than us in these last three races to bring the solution as quick as possible.
I think it's a great result for me, especially, and for the team. It's good to know that you did something at least and gave them 1 point in the end.
Ferrari with their frustrations. Fernando Alonso has to give second best once again, and the Grand Prix winner for the second straight weekend. Britain's Lewis Hamilton, and Anthony Hamilton joins us here in the paddock, and we have to say, I suppose, happy Father's Day after that.
Thank you very much. Fantastic day. I'm here again. I can't believe it.
Reaction to that, and a story that just gets better and better.
Yeah, I mean, it's Lewis felt quite good going into the Thursday and the Friday. On the qualifying Saturday, obviously, I think the pole came and it was unexpected for us, but it was a fantastic feat, and we started today really quite calm, and he was pushed to the end, so it's a fantastic day today as well. And
then that was an absolutely straight fight until about a dozen laps from the finish. What were your feelings when Fernando really took the battle to Lewis?
Something, I mean, that's what we need, I mean, as a rookie, you need to learn, you need to be pushed by the best, and he was today. Hopefully, I mean, I didn't see Lewis make any mistakes, so I'm hoping that he learned a lot, and hopefully next time it'll just be harder to beat.
Back to the UK now, and does that mean you come back to Earth, or does this hectic schedule and all the attention continue?
Well, we're looking forward to getting back to see the family, to be quite honest. Both of us, we're fairly homesick. We've only been away a couple of weeks, but looking forward to seeing the family. And I'm not sure what we'll do. I think we'll probably have a nice quiet Sunday roast next week and enjoy cracking open a bottle of champagne.
Absolutely no chance of that. I think you're due at Goodwood, aren't you?
Oh yes, yeah, that's right. We will be at Goodwood.
I know your diary better than you.
Yes, yeah, cheers.
Off you go and give our congratulations to Lewis. Another fantastic performance. Lewis Hamilton reigns supreme. Another perfect, mature performance from pole position to checkered flag. Fernando Alonso tried everything but take second. Massa and Raikkonen battled within the Ferrari ranks but finished in the positions they started the race. And then it was Kovalainen, Trulli, Webber and Sebastian Vettel making history by becoming the youngest driver to win a World Championship point. There was a fine 11th place for Anthony Davidson ahead of Jenson Button. David Coulthard, of course, went out on the first lap. And Lewis Hamilton extends his lead to 10 points over Alonso in the Drivers' Championship. Massa and Raikkonen lose further ground, and Heidfeld was a non-finisher today. Another McLaren 1-2 means they tighten their grip on the Constructors' Championship over Ferrari. Another great result and another emotional day for Ron Dennis.
Everybody wants us to race. The consequences of racing is that you get more pressure in the team. But they were only asked to turn their engines down 15 laps from the end. We are delighted to come first and second. We never care who wins, and we give every driver the opportunity to win. But there has to be someone that comes second. And inevitably, that person's going to not be as happy as the guy that wins. It's a great motor race. You saw the fight. It was clean. End of the day, it's motor racing. That's what we're here to do.
we believe is the Goodwood Festival of Speed next weekend, but his next Formula One engagement, and yours as well, is the French Grand Prix from Magny-Cours. That's in 2 weeks' time. We'll have live coverage on ITV1 of both qualifying and the race as well. But what Lewis Hamilton has done over the last 2 weeks in North America, back-to-back wins, which have changed the whole complexion of Formula One, and it's also something that British sport in general must be mighty proud of. An inspiring performance once again from Lewis Hamilton.